Aloha, aloha nui, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's joining us virtually and also with us in spirit. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're gonna play a short video, which is the spotlight video on Pico, as we get started here and as people are still, coming into the space. So please enjoy this video on Pico.
Pico is a 360 virtual immersive experience on this sacredness of the Mauna, and it allows people access into a space where they can feel the presence of nature and our connection to it.
Pico is a central focal point of mana. Pico is also the central point of connection that we have in our body, our Pico Maluna, Pico Mawaino, Pico Malalo. And Pico is also the summit of mountains. And this art piece brings us to another Pico of our island, the central point of Hawaii Island, in which we can see the whole of Mauna Kea.
It's no secret that myself, Christopher Kahunahana, and Lanakila Mangauil have a very specific and strong opinion in regards to how we feel about telescopes on Mauna Kea. We all experienced in 2019 tens of thousands of people standing in solidarity and understanding exactly what we were talking about when we were protecting our sacred Mauna. There are definitely people out there who will never be open to listening to what we have to say. And so it was important for us to create a space that would attract those people. When you walk into the gallery, it literally looks like a telescope. Once they are in there is where we now introduce the rest of the story.
You may for a moment be peering into the heavens, but the next part that it shows you is that where that sacredness really lies. You're never going to be able to understand what is above us and what is far from us if you don't understand right here. It brings your vision down. The Pico regrounds us. You can look down at your feet and be transported by being able to see the earth beneath your feet, to be able to see the Hawaiʻi, the waters collect in the clouds, the waters that are also within yourself, and see this sacred landscape that feeds our Hawaii.
I hope that people who experience Pico gain an understanding of the sacredness of that space and why it's important to us. Pico was shot in the Pico of the Big Island. I'm hoping people will feel that power, like why that's important, why it matters so much to us as Hawaiians.
I'm very, very honored to be able to be part of this and help to share our mo'olelo through this technologically challenging process to try and illuminate the sacredness of this place, the sacredness of our Hawaii.
Being in the Artists of Hawaii is one of those lifetime goals and dreams that I've always had. Now, being able to be paired with the people in this show is phenomenal. It's super humbling, and I'm just really, really grateful. At the end of the day, it's just a space of like overwhelming gratitude.
Mahalo nui.
Umato itamalu kamauna kapu kamauna kie kamauna o tawaila kamauna o kavena ula kamauna o kikapau kia kamauna kapua wa kia kapua ka ne kapua poliahu kapuno madoe aloha no kako.
Mahalo nui, Lanakila. Aloha mai kako. Welcome everyone to tonight's Artist Talk. It's our honor to have everyone here and to be able to feature these remarkable artists. It's an honor for the Honolulu Museum of Art to be able to work with them and to be able to facilitate space for PIKO, which we're all going to be discussing tonight. And for those of you who haven't maybe heard much about Artists of Hawaiʻi yet, or maybe haven't seen it in person, the exhibition, the Artists of Hawaiʻi Now is the Honolulu Museums of Art's current major exhibition that is on view through January 16th, 2022. It features 18 artists from Hawaii and has 13 installations, one of which is Pico. And my name is Taylour Chang. I'm the co-curator of the Artists of Hawaiʻi Now, along with a colleague of mine, Marlene Siu. And as co-curators, we had tasked ourselves to facilitate an exhibition that we're exploring a lot of questions, some of which include how can this Artists of Hawaiʻi show, which has been around since 1950, reassess its past, present, and its future? How can we examine the role of contemporary art and the distribution of power between the institution, artists, and community? Who gets to be in the gallery space and why? Who and what really gets to be in the gallery space? And if this is a space where we want to inspire bold creativity, what boundaries can we question? What risks can we take? And what bridges can be forged, in that process? And the three artists featured tonight, Nicole Naone, Christopher Kahunahana, Lanakila Mangauil, are prime examples of leaders in our community who are not afraid to lean in on those questions through their practices and to use innovation and technology to turn those questions into bridges. And it's just our honor and our responsibility as organizations and institutions to support creatives like them with their visions as they really truly lead our community forward. And so we're so proud to be able to work with them, and we're also incredibly proud and honored to have Mahina Paishon Duarte as our moderator tonight. Thank you so much, Mahina, for helping to guide us through the conversation today. Mahina Paishon Duarte is a Hawaiian wahine social entrepreneur that owns and operates 3 Hawaii-based businesses, including Vai Vai Collective. When COVID-19 struck, she co-founded Aina Aloha Economic Futures, which is a small group of volunteers to bring to life a resilient economy through core values of Aina Aloha, a deep and abiding love for Hawaii's communities and natural environments. Mahina and her ohana live on their small family farm and ranch on the verdant slopes of North Kona, Hawaii. And you can find her surfing, working in Heia fish ponds, sailing in Makali'i, or exploring Hawaii's native forests where she is happiest. Mahalo nui, Mahina, for being with us in this space. Thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it to you now.
Mahalo nui to you, my friend. And I just want to acknowledge you and the tremendous work that you do as co-curator of the Artists of Hawaiʻi Now exhibition, curator of film and performance at Honolulu Museum of Art. As a Kānaka space maker and placemaker, you have to be bold. And I just want to uplift you and your colleagues in the work that you're doing. So mahalo nui. So this evening, I have the greatest privilege to sit down and have a conversation with these 3 fine Kānaka. And so if those who are joining us via Facebook Live or on webinar, please just, allow me to just, extol them, because we need to do this. Because Kānaka Hawaii, we don't do this well, right? We do not do this well. We do not extol one another as much as we really should. So I'm going to do it. Christopher Kahunahana is a Kānaka Maoli filmmaker based in Honolulu. He is a Sundance Institute feature film and Native Lab alumni and founder of Fourth World Film. He directed Lahaina Noon, which is currently streaming on the Criterion Channel. He also directed a documentary for the Smithsonian Institute's Asian Pacific American A Day in the Life project. Kahunahana is best known as a writer and director of Waikiki, which received the Grand Jury Award for Best U.S. Narrative Feature, Special Jury Award for Best Cinematography, as well as the Best Made in Hawaii feature film and a Jury Award for Best Cinematography, HIF. In 2019, he contributed his services to Nāleo Kāko'o, Love Nāleo, the medium arm of the Kia'i of Mauna Kea. He is currently developing Iman, is that how I say that, Chris? A near future sci-fi episodic centered on oceanic climate refugees and the birth of the first human AI hybrid. Next up, we have a Manawahine, Nicole Naone. She is a producer currently based in Honolulu, a Kamehameha Schools graduate, holds Bachelor of Fine Arts with an emphasis in sculpture from the University of Hawaiʻi, Manoa, where she was the recipient of the David H. and Doris C. Cromwell Award of Excellence and has been honored as a distinguished alumna by the Arts and Culture Program. Her most notable film production credits include producing the award-winning feature film, Waikiki, as well as a short film, Lahaina Noon, alongside her fellow visionary, and is currently about to start production of a short film she wrote titled Stock Photo. Lanakila Mangauil is a Kānaka Maoli, born and raised, and continues to cultivate this very verdant aina of Hamakua, Honokala, Hawaii. Growing up in the forests of Ahualoa and down in Waipio Valley, he was raised by and able to learn from a wide range of Hawaiian practitioners. Perhaps you know some of his mentors like Auntie Ku Kahakalau, Uncle Nalei Kahakalau. Lanakila graduated from Kanoka Aina Public Charter School, the very first culture-based public charter school here in Hawaii, and became a Hawaiian studies teacher with the DOE Kupuna Makua program, providing cultural education and expanded after-school programs to the Hawaii public schools for more than a decade. In addition, he continues to do social justice work. He is a creator and a fellow artist. He travels often to meet with other Native peoples, particularly on Mokuhonu. So we want to mahalo each and every one of you, these three artists here who have taken a stand for Mauna Kea. So getting right into it, what I wanted to ask our audience members, as we're gonna have this conversation, but I want to invite all of you that have tuned in to start having this kind of internal conversation. Who is your Mauna? Who is your Mauna? What I can say is when I got to see the Pico installation finally, I was immediately teleported into two different spaces. One space was on the decks of a canoe, makali'i to be specific, on the steering suite in, under black sky with Mahina and the stars out, and feeling really small amongst the backdrop of this vast ocean surrounded by ancestors. And then the other place that I was teleported to was in the cold night in the kupuna tent, where I got to serve in a small way some of the kupuna that took a stand for Mauna Kea. I remember like the tattering of the easy corner tents, the uhi and the uhi noi and the uhi pa'a, embracing us, enveloping us, the warmth of laughter, and yet feeling again very insignificant, very small in the face, in the bosom of Mauna Kea. So I just want to thank the three of you for what you folks have done. I'm still like processing, like what just happened? It's like is this like in the intersection of tradition and contemporaryism and po and ao and the natural and the supernatural and culture and science and all of it. So I want to invite Chris first to unmute. I want us to have a conversation, Chris. I'm like pretty amazed. And then when I was kind of like having a chat with Taylour, I just have so much more appreciation. I didn't even know what to appreciate about your contributions, but I didn't realize that what you had, one of the things that you've done that is tremendous and mind-blowing is that you, what is that? You recorded, right?
Mhm.
For how many hours? Simultaneously, concurrently on 3 Mauna, Hualālai, Mauna Loa, and Mauna Kea?
Yeah, it was a long process. I mean, honestly, we started this in 2019. When we started, we actually, there was, Kia'i still on the Mauna. And so that was like the beginning of it. And it was a grueling and exhausting process to get it to where it currently is. But we went up there, I'd say in the last 2 years, maybe 40 times.
Wow.
40 times, and just recorded and set the camera up in different locations. And we shot a lot of different footage. We eventually settled on Pu'ukohe because of its view planes of the 3 Mauna. And I think also because we came to the understanding that we want to present the Mauna in a way without humans, without Kānaka, without anybody on it. And so it was one of the best places where we could have a full view and not have the interruptions of humans. So yeah, I mean, it was grueling. I mean, sometimes we'd have the camera rolling for 16 hours straight. Like, we'd set it up and we'd only stop after the batteries would run out. And we had these gigantic block batteries that just kept the camera cranking. And yeah, it was incredible amounts of footage, and process of getting that footage to, so we did it in time lapse. So everything is shot as photos. So each picture is 8 photos. Each image is 8 photos, and there's each second of screen time is 24 frames. So it's 24 times 8 to make 1 second of footage. And sometimes that 1 second of footage was, over the course of an hour. So it's like it's cranking footage
So tell us
constantly.
I mean, what else did you have to contend with? I mean, you're at high elevation, right? I mean, the weather. So
Yeah,
help us appreciate like what you had to,
I
the
mean,
challenges you had to face.
I think, yeah, I mean, there's the challenges of being at elevation. I mean, the Pu'ukohe is like a little hill, and it's not very high, but at elevation, moving like a 70-pound battery from down below to up above where the camera was placed. I mean, we'd have to take, I'd have to take rest every few steps because it was just exhausting. And that was just a part of the process that we knew. We set out to get to the camera, and it'd take us, whatever, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to walk 100 feet. And, there's being there overnight, it's powerful. And I think that's one of those, not a challenge, but it was one of the greatest aspects of it, which, being out in the middle of the big island among the stars and the mountain, and it was powerful. I think that's one of the greatest aspects of being there, but weather,
Absolutely.
it was freezing. But
Absolutely.
it was the same as being at Hulu.
Right.
It was the same thing. It was just like at night it gets down to whatever 56, 50s, high 40s maybe. I don't know.
Right.
I know it's cold. It's like you put on everything you have, and you just tough it out.
So tell me how many hours of footage and then that actually was pared down. How many hours to pare down to this 12-minute piece?
Oh man, I don't know. I'd say, well, each trip, I mean, we'd record for like days straight. So like we'd go up on, say, Muku, and we'd be there for 3 days, and the camera would never stop running. So, I mean, that'd be whatever, 36 hours, 48 hours, 60 some odd hours straight of recording. So that'd be one trip, and then we just do multiple trips and composite the images, because sometimes something would happen where we couldn't use the footage, like doing any film project. You have to do multiple takes, but there's multiple takes not with an actor where you could tell them to do it again. It's like you just have to let the clouds form on their own, the wind come through, the rain come through, the sun moves at its own pace. It's for us to figure out how to capture those moments. Took a lot of experimentation. It's like we don't know what we got. We couldn't really watch it unfold. I mean, can't really stay up for 4 days and see it in real motion. We just see like a frame, and we just have to assume that as long as we're capturing the image with the right exposures, 8 images simultaneously with the right exposure, we felt we could have something, and we'd come back to Honolulu and look at it. And sometimes it was amazing, and then we'd edit it down, and it'd be the nighttime. The whole night would take place in 2 seconds of final footage. We're like, oh well, we can't show the moon go shoot. So we'd go back up and adjust to the exposure or the length to try and capture the moon at a pace that's still slow enough to give us the feeling of being there, but fast enough so people don't have to wait there for 3 days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel fortunate enough to have a little bit of training, right, in my time on makali'i and hokula'a and kilo practice. But I was remarking to Taylour, if you don't know, if you're not trained to look, sometimes you miss it. Like I saw the wakoko, I saw the punohu. So, but if you don't know to look, you'll just totally miss out. It's interesting.
Yeah, that was one of the most thrilling aspects of it is, as humans, we can only really look forward, but then being able to review your footage and say what was happening behind me simultaneously. So, like instead of watching one cloud formation start here, I could watch multiple cloud formations, one moving this way, one moving that way. And that was always, felt amazing. It's like, it kind of felt like film photography, where you don't know what you get until you unbox it and you process it. And then I'm always surprised at how amazing, and, you feel so small, like you said, it's like you just feel so small among these powerful mountains and clouds and Diana, it's humbling. It was always humbling.
Totally. Is it okay if we ask Christine to tee up some of the slides? Let's check them out together. So Chris, as this is going through, can you share with us what were you hoping to evoke with this installation?
I think it changed in the process. It's like initially, when we started discussing doing something, we were currently on the Mauna and in the service of protecting the Mauna. So our idea initially was to capture some of that, having been of service as a Naleo Kako, we want to bring that experience and try and share some of that experience. But then I think because of the global pandemic and us having to come off the Mauna, what we eventually want to express for people to feel was the sense of the why we protect the Mauna, more so than the what we do. It became not about us as Kia'i, but it became about the Mauna and why we feel compelled, why we were called to protect the Mauna. So I think, like I said, everything is a learning process, and every project gives you the opportunity to explore feelings and ideas and my connection to the Mauna. And I think I want people to come away from it understanding a little bit, if they can get a sense of how we feel about the Mauna, I think is what is most important. I mean, I don't think people can, experience this and go like, oh yeah, that's not important. It's like, I want people to understand why it's important, right? Why it's kapu, why is it so sacred to us? Why do we hold it in so much reverence? And I think when people experience the immensity and the power of the place, it's like, hopefully that's what they'll take away from it.
Yeah, I find it, yes. And I find it like super interesting. I don't know if it was your folks' intent, but when I approached the installation, it felt like a dome. So it felt like I was going to enter into an observatory. And then when I entered, I mean, you're centered around Aina. Aina surrounds you, right? Aina surrounds you first, and then you hear the Aleo Kanaka, right? Yeah. So what really struck me, it just causes me to still kind of sit with this, is like, this idea of wonder and amazement and the sense of like sacred. I wonder if some of the astronomers, I wonder what they feel. Do they feel the same kind of wonder and amazement? I wonder.
I wonder too. No, I think they have to. I mean, you can't see, experience the stars, and not feel that wonder. I think there's I don't know why I don't understand why we, as the original people of this place, coming from the place, being of the Mauna, of the Aina, why they don't understand how we would feel this way about the Mauna. So I wonder, it makes me wonder.
Well, mahalo, Chris. We're gonna have more time to talk as a collective, but I actually want to invite Nicole now to jump on. Aloha, Nicole. How are you doing this evening?
Good.
Good. Glad to hear. So Nicole, my sense is that you were the weaver between these two kane. I just wonder, like the amount of talent and energy and focus that you had to bring to this. It's probably like a lot of mo'olelo to share. A lot of mo'olelo to share.
Well, yeah. Short answer, yes, 1,000%. No. One of the things that I really like that you touched on though was how you know where to look to see the uokoko. You know which way the rain comes, as somebody who is pilina with that place. And one of the things, after all of the shooting and all of the trips and stuff, one of the things that I worked on with Tati Oliveira was adding in the audio cues that really subconsciously actually do get people to turn. And that was mixed by Chris. So all of the rain you're hearing and the winds and all of those things, it's designed in the same way that it's a makavalu camera. It's makavaluing speakers as well. So within that space, all of those are playing different things actually. So a lot of times people that have zero context of the space or where to look or anything like that, they actually, their body intrinsically does it, because we make more of an uncomfortable wind on this side. We do more of an inviting only on this side. This is paired with an image on this, and it sort of creates that shift. And it is funny to me when people come out and they're like, the rainbow, oh my goodness. And I always wonder, like, to make sure, like, I wonder if they catch this, or I wonder if they go, oh my gosh, the rain rolling in. And it's interesting when you are designing for a full 360 of those, how those things come into play. For sure,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally appreciate the soundscape, right? You have this reverberation. What you created for me is that you're having Aina speak to one another, and we just to bear witness. We get to bear witness to Aina, to the rains, and to the winds, and to the Mauna, and to the mamane trees and the nayo trees and the ili ili speaking to one another, and they're interacting together, and we get to we get to be witnesses to all of that magic.
Oh, totally. And it was also it was such a, I mean, me and Chris were literally like figuring out how to get Cantonese translators, because all of the footage he took was more advanced than even the programs made for the camera to process. So like literally, how do we talk to the tech people in Hong Kong to get a translator, to get them to change their software to get, so it's like the amount that went into even getting those visuals. And even Chris is like, he's so humble, he's playing it down. I mean, literally, even with the concepts of, we would have to discuss of like, okay, we got the lunar eclipse, but what does that say? Are we saying the Mauna's only special because get this magic moon is funny kind of color today? Or are we trying to say that it's actually always, you know, important? So there was so much, you know, in addition to the weave, a lot of it is plenty talk stories, and very, I mean, it's what producers do, right? It's you talk story and you go, what are we talking about, and why does this matter? And I'm very subtractive. I'm a carver, right? I'm a sculptor. So I gotta find it by hemoing all kinds of stuff. And I go, oh, there it is. Christopher, opposite, completely additive. And I think that's why we've had such this long collaboration, is because he goes, there's gonna be a lunar eclipse. We're gonna go up there all the time. We're gonna do all the oli. It's gonna be the, but you know, he has such a bountiful love for the Mauna. Me, I go, hemo, more, better, little bit clean, more, better, little bit. And that's sort of the conceptualizing and stuff that happens there. To me, the main, I would even say, weaver would be Lanakila, because Chris and I were very, even though I grew up Oahu and Loa and Waimea, and my dad worked Parker Ranch, like I have actually used to work the Hana Ranch, so that I have such a pilina to that Mauna myself, right?
Beautiful.
And you know, Christopher has been, you know, cares about Aina forever, and grew up in Nalo and has experienced all the changes and all of these things. But we were like, even with our own, you know, connections to this and whatever, we know what we don't know. And it was important to us that we get educated on a way deeper level, so that we could even process our own feelings. Right. It's like, I know that when I'm at the base of this and I can see my horse's ears is getting all nuts, and I'm like, this place magic, I don't know what it means, but clearly my horse is out, so like I'm gonna go this way because something funny over here. Lanakila is able to provide, oh, you want to know why you feel funny over there? Because here's the entire genealogy of this place, and these are the different things, and what day were you there? Okay, well, you know what, because that's the time when this and this, and it's a bit. And so allowing for, you know, my producer brain, Chris, director brain, having this like, oh no, our souls to even understand what our brains were thinking, to me, that's where Lanakila came into play, because all of that ancestral knowledge, that kupuna Pico, that he is really what tied it. Because honestly, if not, could easily be a didactic piece, right?
Totally.
It could be fun. Oh, cool, this video game, right? Oh, cool, you guys into, but having that, being able to have him as a fellow artist to inform how we even understood our own art and to collaborate, it was like, oh, that's why I feel that. Oh, that makes sense. No wonder I cry over there. I didn't know, you know, go.
Right. No, and on top of it, like, this is all the meanwhile, Mauna Kea, the stand for Mauna Kea is happening, right? So you guys are probably trying to reconcile and process your own emotions through this and whatever trauma has been surfaced, right? I mean, I certainly felt those things. So I can't even imagine, as you're trying to create and produce and trying to intersect and weave, and you're trying to take care of yourself and make sense of it all. I mean, I think it's like tremendous.
Well, and it's kind of interesting too, because even the genealogy of this piece really starts in 2014. So Chris and I were working on Waikiki, and he was writing it, and it was brilliant, all of these things. And we just saw Lanakila on the news and was like, bruh. My personal, at first, I was like, we go figure out how to send money. We're busy with this film. I care about the Mauna. That's not our place. Good, get that Hawaiian over there handling, you know. And, you know, Chris really wanted to go, but could not. And so we did an art piece with projection that we did back in 2014. And Lanakila was featured in it. So it's kind of interesting, which, side note, art community was like, this is boring. Why are we talking about this silly Hawaiian thing? Hawaiians are mad at something, like, who cares? And it was like, oh. But you flash forward and it's like, oh yeah, no, that kahea and that seed that Lanakila watered, you know, that have been planted by the poor cases and the Kiloha Pescadas and all of that, had all of those people. Now we'll get 10,000 people on this one. I guess it's not a small issue. I guess it is kind of a big deal. So being able to even have that moment of like, no, art is important. You do need to shut down groundbreaking ceremonies. You do need to, on another island, let people know, hey, one guy won't go do that because our stuff is terrible. You know, all of those things. And even getting to this point, oh no, you need Kānaka like Taylour in the museum to go, no, this piece needs to be in here. We're gonna let them make their protest in the museum. All of those things I feel like are all adding and important and allow for you to at least feel like you're contributing positively and pushing the needle to where, you know, you're doing your part for the love wave, at least. Just keep it going in the right direction.
That's all we can do, yeah. That's all we can do. There's one more question for you, Nicole, before we bring on Lanakila. Just one more question for you before we bring on Lanakila. So, you know, you said something super interesting. You said Makavalu camera. You said Makavalu camera. And I've been like thinking about like, wow, you folks found a way to bring together 1,000-year-old, well, you know, 1,000-year-old knowledge base that then informed Ohana Kamauna, you know, this chant that Lanakila had chanted for the installation. And then you're bringing all this other tech that's interwoven into it. A lot of people would, you know, particularly in our Kānaka community, would frown upon, right, the blending of, or indigenizing this, you know, you're kind of like indigenizing technology. I mean, is that what you're trying to do?
Awesome question. This piece for me is an example, and there are so many things that are great examples of, I know, Western technology, Western, these are even relative words, right? It's a globe, but Western modern technology is always behind and catching up to indigenous truths every time. So it's not even about indigenizing technology. It's just pointing out what narrative they're continuing. I don't need to indigenize your thing. Your thing doesn't know that it's already describing something my people already knew, right? You go, and that's why we had the kumu in the beginning. It's like, we already knew about Big Bang Theory. Like Kalakaua would already translate our kumu so that Darwin could better understand his discovery of evolution, right? It's like, it's not even us becoming tech. It's just reminding tech that I already did that. And I'm glad you're catching up. Like, oh, that's cute. And for me, it's a big way to build solidarity and connection, because it's like, actually, I'm not against you. And actually, I don't need to join your team. You didn't even know you was already on my team, because my people already figured that out. Like, this thing that you invented is already a concept from my kupuna. I'm so glad you figured out how to do our thing, because we already talked about it. If that, makes sense. And I think it's about the way that you use it. That's what determines if that's pono or not. That's what determines. It's that soul element. It's that what oli are being used. It's that how is this being used? And that's where it comes into this heva or what? Is you calling this thing one mocha volu camera and it's not, but at the end of the day, this thing got 8 eyes. And I think we used it for that makavaluing. It's yeah, I don't know if that answers. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I think there's so much to be discussed, and unpacked just around that alone. And we'll have a little bit more of that kind of conversation when we get together as a collective. But I asked Christine to bring up the pic of the dome. Would you help? I think we're getting questions already from our audience members. Like, maybe you, Nicole, if you can just share a little bit about the scope of the actual installation. So what does it entail?
For sure. So when you walk into the gallery, in addition to other amazing pieces by other amazing artists, you hear Lanakila's ohi and you're greeted with this obtrusive object. And for me, specifically, it was really, really important to attract pro-TMTers. I think that our piece, we just did an article with Matt Deneve with Flux Magazine. Thank you, Matt. And the three of us have different things that are important to us about the piece. For me specifically, for it to attract pro-TMTers is absolutely one of the most important elements, because I want the people who already heard all the facts, already heard, oh, this bleeds coolant, the EIS number happened. There's people that absolutely know all of the negative things and just can't wrap their head around, something that sounds so magical and fantastical of the Mauna is sacred. And so to me, it was about, we don't need to keep preaching to the choir. We got to get some people to flip. We got to huli some. We know who already is on what side. And I thought that having a telescope-like object would attract those people. And you go in and you're, when you're greeted with the stars, it has that planetary thing. And it was important to me that the highest tech was the Hawaiian perspective. The lowest tech is the fact that there is a thing that looks like a telescope, because telescopes are low tech. We really should be using satellites, right? There is zero reason for land telescopes at this point. It's like using a typewriter. It's completely obsolete. And so it was important to have things that are attractive to a pro-TMTer be what they are. A dome is very low tech. Projection is even low tech when you can have a VR headset. And that we are going to show, okay, now the sun rises, not only look up, not only nighttime. Now you put on the highest, most evolved form of tech, and that's where the Hawaiian perspective is, because that's where we are. It's like we are in the past, present, and future. We understand the continuum. We understand that we're a part of a larger narrative and a larger continuum in a way that science does not. They just don't. And so, yeah, it was bait and switch. I just wanted to attract pro-TMTers. Say, hey, come inside my dome and blast them with Lanakila's oli. Too late. Okay, come out yet. Wait your 12 minutes.
I think it's attracting a why. I was pleasantly surprised when I was there at the exhibit. I saw a whole range of people. It was awesome. Saw local people, people that look like us. I saw, you know, folks that you know, might be a regular patron of the museum, and like Malihini. I saw a whole bunch of folks and kids. It's great.
That part is really cool. They took out.
Mahalo nui. Okay, let's bring on Lanakila now. Lanakila, Joshua. Aloha ke hoa.
Aloha no.
So I actually want to start right here, right now, at the present. Why bring Mauna Kea into the Honolulu Museum of Art? It's kind of like an unlikely place, right?
Mhm.
Like, you know, I don't know of too many people that look like us that frequent the museum. Maybe we get to go on special occasions, but we don't frequent the museum. So why bring Mauna Kea? Why bring Pico into the museum?
I know very much as it's been shared here too, no, because we're trying to speak outside of the silo. We want more of the community and those who have come to Hawaii to have an opportunity to step in a realm that maybe is more comfortable for them to be able to hear the story. Because in other arenas where we are speaking or where the short stories being shared, perhaps it's not their space. It's not they don't feel comfortable in these places. I mean, how odd is it that this museum sits in the house of an original Hawaii colonizer? You know, why is it an odd thing for Kānaka to want to go to the museum? The history around it. So it goes both ways. It does go both ways. So, and in a way of introducing this concept, you know, this is, I just really aloha Nicole and Chris for even welcoming me to join this amazing process and creation, as it's definitely not my norm. You know, good luck with me even on my cell phone, but you know, this Zoom call was hard enough. I was having a hard time getting on here. So when it comes to tech, it's not my realm, but to hear and see fellow Kānaka who are skilled in these things and still pa'a to who they are as Kānaka too, but still brilliant in these fields and with this tech, it was an honor to be able to bring foundational Ike Hawaii into this, and you know, to help create. As I sit back and I think about it, and once the piece was created for me too, I'm just like, whoa! It's like it opened up a whole nother spectrum for me of even what this piece can even mean, even more. And in some ways, for me, it's almost like a modern, specifically tailored type of kuahu. It's a place, you know, like we look at our kuahus, our altars. They are focal points to help transport us to other places, to other realms, so that we can be inspired by these images. This one is obviously not a very Hawaiian one, but we're almost doing the same function. On the outside, yeah, it doesn't look very Hawaiian, doesn't look very native. So with some people, that makes them more comfortable. Yeah? Until you puka inside, okay, it's still comfortable. Looks like a planetarium. Okay? And then we introduce Hawaii. Because for some, they may never go out there to actually visit that part of Hawaii, or yeah, they might never have the opportunity. And so even for some cases, to have the opportunity in the venue, I also see as an opportunity for fellow Kānaka and fellow Aloha Aina, you know, Kānaka or even non-Kānaka who have maybe feel that connection to the Mauna in the Na'au, but have never been or have never been able to. Now this is a place they can, an opportunity for them to even go and experience just a little bit further that natural landscape. And I think, you know, it's still a powerful tool that now that it's constructed, I'm like, oh my God, we could do like a zillion more things with this as well. And so much learning opportunities with this. And as much as we see this normal shape and that normal image when you walk into with the stars, planetariums. I remember going inside the blow up one inside that they bring to the school all the time. But this one now has even the added power to be able to take you not just up there, but all the way down and around. Yeah, places where almost being able to visit this place and not have a negative impact, because not even your footprint is left there. So I think, you know, in the magic of what this technical, what is technically possible here, I think it creates a safe environment for people to come into, and that's I think somewhat still the biggest struggle that we're still suffering with as humanity, is how to speak to each other, how to deliver our messages. And so sometimes creating these vehicles, these different portals for us to step into, to hear somebody without having to actually listen to us. Maybe I'm too brown for you, or maybe my pidgin is too rough for you to understand. But here we go. Just come inside here. Go ahead. Let the Aina speak to you. Okay? And again, for me, it's almost like, you know, this is a top tech that the humans create, but what you're looking at is that ultimate Akua tech. Yeah, we're getting to really, really see that, you know, that Vahi that we're in, that you're exposed to, is literally, if you took a picture of Hawaii Island and you put your finger right in the middle, that's right where that Makabalu is standing, and the place called Pu'ukohe. So you have that full 360 view of being in the saddle. Currently, the main humans who are in there are the ones going there to blow it up. We're right on the edge of Pohakuloa, and I've been up there for a ceremony, and they are shooting live ammunition right in the middle of our ceremonies. So that's who's up there currently most of the time, are people who are destroying that Vahipana, that wonderful technology of a landscape that's able to capture amazing clouds and create powerful formations, and not to mention being able to capture and filtrate billions of gallons of fresh water to feed these islands. That's amazing technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think it's just a wonderful venue to be able to step outside of even our own silo and create an opportunity for those who are far to be able to be transported like a kuahu.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys, for me, you achieve confluence, right? Where you're bringing film, you're bringing technology, you're bringing ritual together, right? And what, you know, what was very effective is like, I was sensing a little bit of dissonance, like a little bit of, you know, a little bit of dissonance and resonance, right? There were moments in the 12-minute series where I felt, you know, like I was a part of, and then at some moments I felt like I shouldn't be here, almost, you know, there's a little bit of dissonance. And so I think that's when we're trying to create safe space, right? Lanakila, Chris, Nicole, what you folks do through your art is like so needed today. So Lanakila, why Pico? Why now? And what's at stake?
What was that last part? Oh.
Why Pico? Why now at stake?
I believe, you know, Pico, you know, even when we're thinking about the Inoa, the name for this, you know, just kind of helping to ground that, you know, the Mauna itself is a Pico. It is a central point of mana. It's the peak of a mountain. Yeah, and then even befitting that, you know, we decided, because in the early phases we had all kinds. We was thinking about going up Waiau side. Maybe we go, even at one point we're like, maybe we go put them right on the ala. Yeah, and everyone would be dancing around and all this kind of. We had so many different ideas on how we were going to even present that. But how, you know, it's just interesting how we ended up finding our way to Pu'ukohe. And in that, you know, in that, for me, it's also that we have a perspective of coming from another Pico, another central point, this Pico Mawaina no Kea Mokupuni, and being able to look up from that point to the Pico Maluna, to the highest point. Know that you get Mauna Loa behind, and you know, the activity of Kilauea, or the kind of like the active birthing Pico Malalos. And so seeing that layout, you know, that's what this is. You know, we're trying to bring ourselves into that sacred focus, to centralize ourselves, to feel that mana. So that, you know, that we come back into our Pico. You know, as we also refer Pico as that's our protocol. Pico is also the general term that we use for protocol, because that we come back into ourselves, we come back and we recenter ourselves. So to have that full range view, you know, we're refinding our place. I really feel too, and at this time, it was so necessary. You know, for me, I really look at, you know, as a Kanaka and a person of this planet, I don't take everything or anything that happens for granted. Everything happens for some reason. So even the fact that we, in some cases, were kind of thrown off by COVID. In some cases, COVID was a blessing. Yeah? What did it do? A whole muke. Silence. Everybody, back to your rooms. Think about what you did. Yeah. And in that time when everybody had to retreat, and, you know, and in that retreat of the Kanaka, of the human, having to return and be minimalized, what did we see happen? We saw that the natural healing of Aina all over the planet, yeah, including on the Mauna. Yeah, we saw this recentering and healing of individuals by being able to have the greatest gift we were given back was time. Yeah, we had time to actually stop and breathe, and, you know, actually talk to that person that I live with, or my family member, you know, and it just kind of grounded everybody a little bit, I think. And it also revealed some things were very uncomfortable, what COVID revealed to us, that really we lived in a very poor system that is not here, you know. And for me, regrounded us, for me, is realizing these systems that we are chasing every single day, 8 hours a day, trying to get pictures of dead white guys on Pepa, you know, for what? In the moment when we were at our most need, it abandoned our people, it abandoned our communities, left us all floundering. But you know what didn't abandon us? Was Aina. The water was still flowing, the land was still producing. But so at this time, for me, Pico is also an opportunity to bring us back to ho'iki kanawai, remind us of the sacred laws of how Aina works. How it's the same laws that every single one of us, not even just Kanaka, all of our ancestral lines from every different points. We are part of this Aina. We're part of our environment. We are, as indigenous people, we're only can claim that because we were an intrinsic part of the natural indigenous ecosystem. So in that, you know, when we forget about that, when we lose our pilina to Pico, we forget that it's what feeds us. You know, the literal Pico of our umbilicals when we were in our mother's womb is the literal the mother that feeds us. If we don't have a Pico, if humanity forgets the Pico, that is what the Aina around us is the natural road, is the placenta that channels and feeds us, then we're just going to continue feeling like there's nothing left, and we're going to continue going further and further and further away, thinking that there's no hope. Yeah, it's all lost. Might as well, we got to go to another planet. How about you, Malamaris one? Let's grain this foundation again. So at this time, there's a lot of reasons too that manifested, even itself wasn't planned. You know, that's how Okua work, yeah. Wasn't planned, but it came through by going through this journey. It's building more, it continues to build more. So I just think that it was meant to be at this time, and grounding us. And something, Pico can be a very simple concept too. And sometimes that's what we gotta do. Sometimes we think too big and we forget, oh, it's right here. Just ground back in the Pico.
Hello, Leiloa. I'm asking if Taylour can join us. So if you could put your video back on, I'm going to ask Taylour. So I just want us to have like a shared conversation now. But Taylour, this one is for you first. You know, you as co-curator, what surprises do you have? Like what have you seen, or what have stories might you tell us about how Pico is affecting all those that are able to enjoy the exhibition?
Yeah, it's been so awesome to see visitors engage with the piece, you know, all the way from, you know, visitors to the island, tourists who really ultimately know so little about Hawaii, all the way to, you know, local attendees. And I mean, some of some of the most like really moving and striking instances are when, I mean, honestly, I would say pretty much every single time, at least that I've been, you know, with the piece, you know, in the gallery space, you know, people will walk in that dome structure one way and then walk out, you know, kind of different, with a different, you know, perspective or different feeling. It truly is a transformative piece. I mean, there have been multiple times I've been like wiping off tears off, you know, from the headsets, you know, like it could be very emotional for many people. Also, the types of conversations that the piece has sparked have been pretty remarkable. You know, I remember I had a conversation with you know, a gentleman and his wife from San Francisco who, you know, hadn't heard of Mauna Kea before, hadn't heard of any of those places before, and they just wanted to learn, and they just felt so moved, and then they without a doubt, and then they looked right across on the wall and they saw, you know, Kapulani's piece with, you know, the kupuna who stood, you know, defended the Mauna, and they just got it. It was like, right, it was like no question. And so, you know, it's moments like that you know, really show how impactful and important this piece is. Yeah, those are just a few examples.
Mahalo. I have just one more question for you.
Sure.
As a Kānaka curator, what is this whole exhibition mean to you?
Oh shoot, that is like, I mean, it means it means so much. I mean, for me, it's like I'll put down anything. I'll sacrifice as much as I can to make sure that each of their pieces, all of your voices, resonate. You know, I'm getting emotional. That question is making me emotional. Yeah, I mean, it means the world, right? I mean, it's after such a hard, you know, time that we've been navigating, right? I mean, the fact that these artists, particularly these three artists, managed to create a piece that speaks so loudly and so purely, there's just really bright lights amongst these very, very difficult times. And so yeah, I think it also speaks to the responsibility that we have to our aina, to our community, and, you know, working within a museum space, which is quite a complicated space, as Lanakila was beautifully articulating earlier. It's like you have to, it's our responsibility to do everything we can to enact change and to transform people's perceptions. And if one person experiences Pico and steps out and feels like they connect to Hawaii in a deeper, more pono way, then it means the world, right? And it's just like one person at a time, like over and over again, until, you know, we have like a lahui that will thrive, and that is thriving, you know? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm down. Let's time to the go. This is not
Eola. Okay, my friends. So this question is for all of you, really. So you guys are bold, you guys are assertive, you're willing to challenge the status quo, right? You're willing to do what most will not do. And I just assume that you guys receive a lot of criticism, a lot of flack from that. So I guess I wanted to, I mean, do you get criticized? And if so, is it worth it? And what is that teaching you? And what should that teach us?
Yeah, I just want to sort of say once, because you guys kind of talked about it earlier. And I did get to some places too, because when I was describing it, people hearing about it, like especially some Kānaka are kind of concerned about the melding of the tech and this thing. I'm like, we strum ukuleles, right? We put our lau on our lole, right? We have every right as a people to continue to evolve as we see fit. Kānaka are not bound to be only within a particular time frame held in some historical book. And if it wasn't recorded back in 18 whatever, then it's not really Hawaiian. Bruh, we right here. We're right here. We're alive. We're not museum pieces. We're not dead and gone. We're right here. We can continue to evolve. And like our kupuna, as they learned different things, as different things came to them, and as they took it in, they also shifted and changed these things to be their own. Ha'ina ia mai ana kapuana isn't even Hawaiian. That originated from listening to the songs of foreign music, and we kind of adopted it. Hey, we like it, and we made it our own. Ukulele was in Hawaii, but it sure is now. Yeah. So in that, also I kind of put that out there to our lahui. Mai maka'u, don't be afraid to innovate, but we make sure that we do so from a strong foundational point of knowing who we are first. Yeah, if we're not pa'a and who we are, then we just creating out of thin air. And if we didn't pa'a to the mole of who we are, then we end up kind of changing and just end up becoming somebody else, and we lose our foundations. So in this, what I really want to honor is how we've, like Chris is pushing even the tech to shift, and encouraging them, challenging them, but coming from such a place to have a filmmaker, a technician, camera person being able to speak about the makavalu. I mean, literally, the thing showed up in the box. It's got 8 eyes. It's like, okay, it is makavalu, totally. You got to be able to see where you're going, where you came from, and what's coming on the sides, above you and below you. That thing is awesome. So, what that's one of the criticisms I've had. And of course, a little bit of like, oh, I thought you Hawaiians don't like technology, aren't you being a hypocrite? Shh. I mean, there's no answer to that. That's such an elementary little argument there. There's kind of like, you just go choke on that. But because here we are, we're 21st century people, and at the same as the tech is here, my thing is also where so much of even our own people and people around the world are being, because even in schools, the kids hardly write anymore. They're literally on computers and tablets, and so the fact that the technology is becoming the tool of education, for me, then we have to be able to tap into that to remind people, don't forget, this is waiting for you here. Because one thing, I mean, as brilliant, and this is our own piece, as powerful as it is still never going to give you the same experience as being on that aina in that makani. Yeah, it's just all of us who might be pulled, and our keiki and everybody who's getting pulled more into this tech, let's at least give them this to remind them, if you take that off, you're going to have the full experience. Ho'ika aina too. Yeah, so just
Mahalo nui. How about you, Chris? Oh yeah, Nicole. Any criticism been thrown your way, Nicole?
Well, I mean, I'm lucky because I like to project. I mean, only like my really close friends and family know that I'm like a crybaby and have all these feelings, but it's very important for me to project an element of just like cold-hearted and disassociated person. So I'm very lucky. Everybody just talk behind my back, but I have no experience of it in my face because I got a good right. Like try Sam, see what happens. Like, see how Hawaiian I get. Let's see. I'll take my arrows off right now. But no, I think that there's the petty stuffs, and it's like, whatever, choke on them, right? Lanakila stuff. But there's also even like very, very deep ones that I question for myself. And I think that what I love about the lahui is we namu for days, and it's okay to receive and think about it. And sometimes it's a 2-minute thought to be like, oh no, you mad at your dad. You're not even mad at me. You ain't even talking to me. That's your issue, whatever it is, right? And sometimes you go, ooh, okay, wait, let me think about that. One of the big ones that comes up as producer, right? I touch plenty money. A lot of it is facilitating, okay, how to flights, how to this, how we paying for this. A lot of it is financial conversations. And it happens a lot even within charter schools, right? How do we reconcile we are a charter school getting American federal money to survive? There's a lot of these when it comes down to, well, who's paying for this? It's very tricky. I would definitely, something that I think Chris and I, for Waikiki and even for this entire exhibition and Homa period is very lucky for is that I'm like, they might be the only ones, I don't know. But Linda and Bob Nichols, who are from the continent, who, I mean, literally my first conversation, they're like, we know we're not white saviors. We have no interest in doing that. We live here. We want to contribute to, like, it was a no-brainer to them. And it did not come with strings attached, and it did not, you know, and so, you know, and they're the executive producers of Wiki, and they are not Kānaka, you know, and so there's a lot of things that you do kind of, it's like, how do I feel about this? And really, to me, what it does come down to is I try to have an allegiance to the Aina and try to ignore the human elements that actually don't matter. And if somebody else's value and core system is in alignment with the Aina and is in alignment with who we are supposed to be serving to begin with, I look at the actions, I look at and that for me is sort of the litmus test, but it is something that is tricky. You know what I mean? It's very tricky. How do you get to protest in the Mauna or in the museum and do your thing? Somebody needs to pay for that, you know? And like, even for this piece specifically, there's the Kānaka that show up and are like, word, like Waters Martin was like, this is phenomenal. Amazing freaking Kānaka who helps. And he's just like, when we published the Olaro, I was looking at my Olaro No'eo book.
Ay, mahalo nui.
No, yeah, I'm like, oh, literally Waters just casually was like, people still need, I'm like, oh my gosh, what, thank you, Waters, holy crap, you know? So to me, it's like you always gonna, and it's important to just look at the values, look at the, you know, and follow more as needed.
Mahalo nui, Chris. Did you want to respond to that, Chris, as well, that question? Or if not, I have another one.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I mean, quickly.
On them, actually, I'll answer for Chris. People that have sticks me on them, and he makes me be Korean to them, and I gotta go handle.
I'm like, go talk to Nicole. Go talk to Nicole.
Yeah. No. He goes, go tell Nicole. Go tell Nicole what you mad about.
You know, anyway. honestly, as a Kānaka and artist, you always get told no. It's not something new, right? I'm always used to pushing back against people's opinions, or, you know, there are people's opinions that you shouldn't be allowed to do that, or you know, who do you think you are to do that? Like, and those are normal things for an artist, right? It's like, you always have to question your intent. And for me, how I know whether or not I should continue doing whatever I'm doing beyond people's whatever, you know, flapping, is I check my kupuna, you know what I mean? I ask them, and they recognize me, and they support what I do, you know? I mean, not only physical kupuna, but like spiritual kupuna. Like I'm like, I ask them, I know, I feel right, or else I couldn't do it. You know, there's no way I could go on and spend time, you know, and create a palina with that place if it wasn't right for me, you know? So, and people say, how do you get to do it? I'm like, well, you know, because they allow me to, you know, like, do they recognize you? Maybe for you, it would be wrong. We all have different kuleana, right? Like, maybe for you, it would be wrong, but I know I was put here now to do what I do. You know, my ancestors put me here now. You know,
that's powerful though. What you said is because this notion that we do when we're invited.
Yeah.
Because we're invited to engage in a particular way. We don't just go mahoi, right?
Yeah,
we're invited.
It's like I just, you know, get these things like, oh yeah, okay, all right. Like, you know, when Lanakila and I were looking for the location, and it's like we just knew as soon as we were there, we're like, oh, this is right. Like, and if it wasn't, we would have known immediately it wasn't right. You know, and I think having that sensitivity to the only things that actually matter makes it a lot easier to just forget about all the stuff that doesn't, you know.
So I have a wheel around, a quick lightning round for you guys. So you have only like less than 30 seconds to respond. Like, if you can do it in 15, that would be even more impressive. So here's the question. What does powerful allyship look like? What does powerful allyship look like? Who wants to go?
I think not centering themselves, right? I think that's important. It's like, you know, being supportive in a way as recognizing the importance for the people who are they're supporting to take front and center, right? I think that's one of the largest ones, right? It's never going to be about them. If it ever is about them, then I think, you know, we don't need that. Yeah.
Mahalo. Next.
Next
What is
question.
powerful ally? No. Next person. Nicole or Lanakila?
Pizza
I
Hut.
mean, it's 15 seconds, and I mean, I feel like I'm probably gonna rewatch this and regret this, but I'm like, cut that check.
No, yeah, no, honestly, that helps a lot. Like, you know,
That-
and it's a huge part of it. You know, a lot of people, for instance, artists, they have access because they have resources, right? They have access to capital. Without it, it's like how do indigenous people or underrepresented communities get representation? It's like if you don't have enough to feed your family, you don't have enough to like, there's no way you're gonna level the playing field, right? So those kinds of things, those, you know, those privileges of just like feeding your family, for instance, those are critical. So she's right. Yeah. So like help us out financially is always huge, you know.
Awesome. Mahalo.
Proud
Lanakila.
to beg. We ain't too proud to beg.
That's kind of a hard one, but you know, I would say, you know, another thing too is be willing to my maka'u kahana, be willing to do the task as it's presented to you, because there's a lesson to be learned in how it is. Sometimes we get people come in, they insist like, oh well, no, let's do it like this. It's like, hey, there's a reason we do it like this. So just kind of, you know, being willing to commit themselves openly to follow the process that's being presented to them. Because, you know, in indigenous ways, it's the journey is where you're going to learn. It's not just about just a quicker way to a completion. It's about the journey that must be taken. Yeah.
Awesome, you guys. I have actually one more lightning wheel around for you folks, but we'll say that shortly. We have a question from one of our audience members, from Nicole Furtado. She's a Kānaka PhD student at UC Riverside. She studies Indigenous speculative fiction, virtual reality, digital art, and decolonial futurities. Awesome.
You want a job?
She says, right, right. She says, I'm incredibly interested in the ways Makavalu comes alive in the technology being used in Pico and how the truths of our kupuna are being emphasized and reworlded in how technology is defined. Could you all speak more to that?
What was the question? So how?
Here's her second question. She would like to know how you folks think about how new technologies can be applied in pono ways and not in a heavy way. Ethical application.
For sure. I think the biggest, one of my favorite parts about this technology that Lanakila is who even pointed out, I was like, oh, I didn't even, yeah, you're right, is the no footprint. Like what is appropriate in this space? Lanakila's voice, the wind, the end, like it's, you know, that element. I think that there is so, like, that's just a small example, and there's many of how to engage with spaces, sacred or not, with no footprint.
Well, I think it's the same as any other tool, right? It's like an ads can be used as a weapon or a tool, you know? So are you using it as a tool to build something or to dismantle something or to start life or end life, you know? So it's like, I think technology doesn't have, it's neither good or bad. It's like, it's the application of technology, which will make it either, you know, just and pono or, you know, ever.
Yeah, definitely the application, but also I would say, you know, it's important that we always pay attention to the creation of technology and how things are created, because in a lot of ways, the tech that we use, you know, we're seeing its beneficial uses, but we have to be conscious of, you know, the millions of acres of land being destroyed in other places, and the people working like slaves that are actually mining, working the stuff to get these things. And it is a kanalua for me all the time to be thinking about how do we use this tech, but even its process of obtainment. And, you know, in some cases, that's what we're facing on the mountain, you know, is people pushing the idea of expanding technology at the cost of what? So, you know, it is that thing. I think this piece, it's a conversation that this piece also brings forth too, where, you know, like I talked about the guy who actually said, oh, you guys hypocritical, yeah? Hush up. At the same time, there's something to be discussed about that. How do we continue to cultivate technology, but how do we lessen its impacts in its creation, its application, and also its what you call that, you know, after you powered it, you know, disposal.
Right.
So thinking full rounded like that for me, you know, when hearing that question, it's also that full rounded question there. But I think in essence too, for me, it's all about finding the kaulike. We have to find that balance of making sure that, you know, even for ourselves, that we don't become overly tech, that we then forfeit the natural. I mean, we all watched Wall-E, right? You know, you see what happens. You just so dependent on everything else that you rather just watch everything, even though it's dying over there, but I see them over here. So I think what's important is the communication and the knowing that this is just to help us connect to that. We kind of changing the loop instead of tech just pulling us further away from our aina, from our environment, from each other. Just got to curve that pipe so it just kind of ricochets us right back into remembering and engaging and being here. So
absolutely, intention is so important, right? It all starts with intent. And I think the other thing that I'm drawing from all of you folks in this conversation is we gotta just ask the question, if you're gonna employ new tech, then we gotta ask ourselves, well, who's gonna suffer from your great new idea? Who might suffer, right? I don't think, certainly, I feel like sometimes I don't ask myself that question enough, you know, because sometimes our greatest idea, even with good intent, we don't ask like, well, I wonder if there might be any ill effects on anyone else.
In that conversation,
then we don't ask the question. Yeah.
I love one of my favorite Mauna moments, whatever. I grew up hearing, like, to be Hawaiian, well, one side was very like this. The only side was not like this, but by the other side, the Kealoha side, was like this: that your Hawaiian culture is about aloha, and it's about love, and it's about, you know, and the end. That's the end of the story, right? One of my favorite Mauna moments was Jamaica reciting this poem where she gave a complete genealogy of resistance is a Hawaiian cultural practice. And she gave all these examples of how actually that you might not dance hula, you might not dive, you might not do this. Maybe your position and your Hawaiian cultural practice is activism. And here are examples, here are the kumu that you should look into. To me, technology is the same way. I mean, there's a reason that, like, we had electricity, Iolani Palace, before anybody else. I mean, it's like we're who is the starting point of what became the electric guitar. Surfing, hello. Like, us pioneering and developing technology. I mean, our ahupua system, the hydraulic cycle, and us even understanding all of that. Hawaiians are doing that. Like, that is a cultural practice, because we are so greatly in tune with having 3 Pico and past, present, future. Of course, we are more inclined than many other cultures to be able to project ourselves forward and project ourselves backwards and talk story with this rock and my grandma told me this and whatever. It is a cultural practice. And so I think that removing that element of Hawaiian culture is something to be commodified in this specific hula or in this specific, that is the notion that gets you to be a dead culture. That makes it go on a postcard. But you keep evolving, you keep moving, and you keep going, and then it's not scary. And then it's more about, no, this is a means to communicate. like anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, it's like
Just
that productive friction. Yeah.
just kind of speaking to that too. It's something we barely touched on, the oli, in this piece. You know, the deep thing about that, even the idea of challenging our idea and our concept of what is considered tech. You know, in the sense of data collection. I mean, Hawaiian oli is freaking amazing. How much information is packed into one word in its sequence of all of this is amazing. So the oli in that too, and I always talk about how language, even our own language, you know, our language evolved. You know that's why from whatever our kupuna Polynesians brought here, it shifted. Everyone's like, well, Tahitians came here. Well, how come we're not speaking Tahitian? Because the aina, the people shifted to fit the aina. The land sounds different. The water sounds different. The makani sounds different here. And we mimic that sound. And that's why even we had many different dialects even on this island, because the wind, everything sounds different in Kona, like different animals and plants compared to Hilo. So in that, our language, our olelo, the pane of our voices is the mimicry of nature. It's the imprint of the natural ecology into our leo from these birds and everything. So to have that in there, I think this is where I gotta drive it home here, is that the other aspect is where we have to, for me as a Kanaka, I challenge myself to be able to stand as a Kanaka, as an indigenous person to Hawaii. Am I part of the indigenous ecosystem, as my kupuna were? Because as they say, you know, in the Western perspective, a lot of times when you learn about aina, when you do earth studies or earth sciences, you learn about all that, but the people are removed.
Separate.
Because they have a concept that somehow we're superior to animals. But for us, there is no superiority. We are an intrinsic part of. So you cannot have a Hawaii, or Hawaii is not complete without, like, its native trees, its native birds, its native plants, its native people. And how we live, the amazing technological advances that our people made was so great that our people was piha with food. The ocean was healthy. We never even need work all the time. They thought we was lazy. No, we just never need work all the time because we had it all down. Yeah, our tech with our rocks and our hydrology and our food and everything was on point. So it also challenges the concept, I think, through the olelo that echoes through in this, it reminds us of the ancestral collective memory that is in the makani, that's in this pohaku, that's in these places. That, you know, why are we trying to think that our plans for the future can only be like from this point forward? It's like we have to pull from the collective memory of hundreds of thousands of years of people. Why would we cut that all off and see we got to start new? So, yeah.
Oya hoi. Oya hoi. Well, my friends, we're gonna start to wind down. And so you have one last question that I actually like each of you to please respond to. What is your call to action? What is your call to action? Either a personal one or to the collective us, and however you define that.
My call to action is to co-sign whatever Lanakila's call to action is. Sorry, I am still even processing all of the knowledge you just dropped. It always like takes me a second to even, I'm like even just still processing everything that you just said. It's blowing my mind. So yeah, Alakai, please tell me the call to action so I can co-sign it, and I'll hook on to you, whatever we got to do. Tell me what we're supposed to do.
Well, I mean, on like a realistic, I mean, I want people to come and see Pico, please, you know. If it, you know, for a lot of people, it's the first time experiencing VR. And for me, it's a thrill to have people's first experience with VR be a Hawaiian experience. So please, you know, experience the piece that, you know, we put so much of ourselves into, and hopefully you'll gain something from it. Support Kanaka artists, you know.
Yeah, I just want to pick.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna say, I just want to piggyback off of that too. Yes, visit this. Please visit this piece, and anyone want to see it, you know, what kind of fun we can bring it other places. He's going to keep living. Just saying, but I encourage everyone, please come and experience this. And the next step too, once you experience this, you know, yeah, I hope it helps you have another understanding for our Mauna, but I hope it also helps you reflect on your Aina, wherever you are, to expand your perspective of your place and to start asking the questions. Like when you visit our piece, you know the everything's described there too of why we did this piece, the movement behind protecting this place. And if you feel that in your heart, when you go back home to wherever that place is, ask those questions of your home. You know, how is this place? Is it healthy? Am I doing what I need for our place? Because that's part of how we will help Malama our Mauna here, Malama our Hawaii, is when everybody is pa'a in their places and everyone's doing their part, their kuleana. So come visit it, check it out, and I hope it helps inspire you to ho'i ko aina and malama ko aina.
I'd like to add
Support all the local Hawaiian
piece.
artists and artists all
Totally.
over work.
Totally. I'm just gonna add in another thing. For those who call Hawaii their home, learn the language of this land. There's plenty free resources. I promise you it's gonna help unlock knowledge and wisdom that we will all collectively benefit from. So with that, mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. We're gonna ask Taylour and perhaps Christine to come on now and to close us off. And then finally, and then just to fully punny our time together, Brother Lanakila will take us.
Mahalo nui, Mahina, and just so much gratitude to you for guiding us through tonight's conversation. Thank you so much, Nicole, Chris, Lanakila, for all of your ike and mana'o. Like, just infinite gratitude to you all. And thank you all for joining us virtually, whether through Zoom, Facebook, or otherwise. It's such a pleasure to spend this time with you. And yes, please see the show. The links are in the chat. You can go to the website, the Pico website, the museum website for more information. I just want to thank all the supporters of the show and everyone who has seen the exhibition already and have yet to see it. It's going to be on view until January 16th, 2022. So you have about a little over a month. So definitely come on by. Yeah, just mahalo nui. Just perfect way to kind of close the night.
Mahalo nui kako. I'm just gonna throw this pulley up there. It's not to really, I don't think we have to really close this, but we have to, in fact, encourage you to continue to ulu in the conversations, to continue to take us into deeper thought. So I've got this pulley to ask for that inspiration, for guidance, and that we look to all these elements that flash above us, that move and blow through us. That may they continue to inspire us as even the EO soars up high, that we want to rise to our highest potentials, and that we do so for the well-being of the care and the health and well-being of our Aina and for our communities and for each other. So, pulikato. Manui. Kia loa hune ka pule hine iala e hiana mu iana we tane hilo na ka nehila lo ka akau ka hema kuma ka ni hai ka lani he kili ka aka e lani kauila nui ma ke hai ka lani pa nei ta lani he ola ke kanaka ho mai ka lo ea ka ike ka mana i ai ko honu ala o halawali o ka hiwai hoi ai tahua o lelo Eli taume. Hola.
Hola. Lohano.